Up next on the Sam Sorbo Show, director producer of Patterns of Evidence, The Journey to Mount Sinai, Tim Mahoney is joining us on the Sam Sorbo Show. Here's a look at the trailer.
For the last 50 years, Exodus explorers have been searching for the true location of Mount Sinai. Now, for the first time, Patterns of Evidence will investigate the journey of Moses and the Israelites. What route did they take, and what evidence still remains today? Join me on this amazing and inspiring investigation, Journey to Mount Sinai.
We've discovered, my husband and I, a great American company that supports our traditional values and also the work we're doing to rescue our culture from the lies of the left. So I want you to go check it out. It's called NutraMedics.com, NutraMedics.com. And you can find there great health and wellness products that are derived from the rainforests. I've found that they work incredibly for me. I take their melatonin. I get a much better night's sleep with that. I also take their Relax Medics and their Mood Medics, which are, I don't know what they are, but they're this natural blend of herbs, basically, and really easy to take. They actually droppers, and I just love their products, and I love what they stand for, because they have a heart for this nation and they have a heart for people. And I don't know how you would have one without the other. And that's why maybe they have both. But I just love what they do. So go to NutraMedics.com and you can actually go to sorbo.nutramedics, and that's with an X, sorbo.nutramedics.com. If you use Sorbo at checkout, you'll get a discount on anything that you purchase there. So go check it out. Get a better night's sleep, get a better day, feel better about yourself. They've got a lot of great products there, including vitamins. I use them all. So trust me, it's great. NutraMedics.com. And thank you so much for listening. Hi there. Welcome to the Sam Sorbo Show. My guest now is Tim Mahoney. He's an investigative filmmaker. He makes documentaries, but the documentaries are a quest for the truth. And I've known Tim for quite a while now, since I think this whole journey for him, in one sense, began with Patterns of Evidence, The Exodus, which is an excellent film. It's been out there a couple years. There are several films following it, including his latest film, which is Patterns of Evidence, Journey to Mount Sinai, which is a film that I just saw, and it's fascinating. And so my guest is Tim Mahoney. Thanks so much for joining me.
Well, thank you. And I want to thank you for letting me come back onto your show. And, you know, your husband, Kevin, he was the narrator of the first film. So you know him,
yes.
Don't you?
Yes, I do. Yes, I remember that. The narration was spectacular.
It was, yes.
So Tim has a new film, and it is opening in theaters on October 17 and 18. It will be nationwide, and I encourage you to see it that weekend only. It's so tell us about the movie. It's The Journey to Mount Sinai. Now, Mount Sinai is a tough one because there's a lot of discussion as to where really Mount Sinai is. There is a Mount Sinai, but we're not actually convinced that that's the real Mount Sinai, right?
Yeah, so there's the traditional Mount Sinai, and then there are probably at least a dozen other possibilities. And during my films, as I'm investigating the story of the Exodus, and we made our way up out of the Red Sea in the last film, and now we're on the way to the Mount Sinai location. And so the question is well, where is that location? And what I decided to do was to look at 6 different Mount Sinai locations, including the traditional Mount Sinai, because for a long time I've been interested in a location that's in Saudi Arabia called Jebel Alaz. And I went there in 2003 legally. I actually got allowed into the country and was filming, but a lot of people have discounted that just because they think it's just doesn't fit the Bible. And so what I said was, well, let's just look and see what the Bible says about this. And in this film, which is very, very, I think, unique, we created a Mount Sinai scorecard. We've got this scorecard that we have as a downloadable PDF that people can get if they go to patternsofevidence.com. And we actually give you the biblical criteria that we're going to look for in the movie. And as you're watching the movie, I actually pause, as you probably saw, and say, okay, now it's time to score this mountain.
Right. And so you give what you mean by biblical criteria is, how is the mountain described in the Bible? What does the Bible say about the particularities of this mountain that might distinguish it from other mountains? And there are many of those particularities, as you can see from the scorecard. There's a whole list of them. And so you can score whether it matches, it seems to match perfectly, whether it sort of half matches, or whether it doesn't match at all, and you leave it blank. And then you see which mountain scores, in a sense, scores the highest, gets the most points for being closest to the biblical description. Why is the actual location of Mount Sinai relevant to today? Because I'm sure that there are a lot of people who, maybe they're strong Christians, maybe they read their Bible and they go to church and all of that. But ultimately, does it really matter to them where Mount Sinai is?
Well, that's a great question. And that's a question that I've been wondering about myself. Does it really matter where it is if we find it? And, it could be that we might not find it exactly, but I think there's some indicators that there's some really good candidates here. And why is it important? It's because mainstream scholars today, and many people, say that the Bible is a myth, that there's no evidence for any of these events. And they go back to the evidence for the Exodus. And that's the reason why I got involved with this. Because if it's not true, then even the very words of Jesus, when he talks about Moses, and he talks about, he says, if the reason you don't believe in me is because you don't believe in Moses. He's identifying that there really was a Moses. But what we see in a lot of mainstream, and it's growing, it's been into a lot of colleges. When you send your son or daughter off to college and they take a Bible course, they're going to basically be given a course that basically says, in most cases, that the Bible is a wonderful book of literature, but it's not historical. It's not factual. And what the Bible is telling us is that God really has acted in history. And that the location of Mount Sinai, actually, there are some locations that have a pattern of evidence that matches the biblical criteria. But they're in a place that is not where tradition places it. And that's what this whole investigation is about. And that's why some people are so excited and have risked their lives to actually go photograph and find out, more details about this location.
Well, there's also and I'm surprised that you didn't mention this. To me, there's also just the idea that if that's really it, then I want to go there. Like, I want to see that place. And I know that we don't imbue the place itself with any, mystical properties or whatever, but there still is a little bit of that sense of awe that it would inspire to know for sure this is the place. So there is that element of the skeptics, and the skeptics exist within our seminaries now that are teaching that the Bible is just a good book for reference, but it's not truth or whatever. I mean, seriously, there's some very strange shenanigans that are going on in the church today.
Yeah.
But I will say, for instance, Kevin and I have we led a tour to Israel a couple years back. We're actually leading another one coming up. And there's a sense of awe that overtakes you when you understand that the place that you are standing on is the place that Jesus stood, or is the place where Paul stood or Stephen stood. Like, there's awe simply because it is our history. It's ours. It's the story of our culture, of our lives. And so to be able to firm up where that is, I think that's really hugely important.
I agree with you. And I'm trying not to give the whole movie away, all the stuff that's in the movie, but you're correct. Being at those locations and thinking that this is where the Israelites walked, or this is the mountain that they came to, uh, is a very powerful feeling, a powerful experience for many people. And I think that especially like I know that you've been in Jerusalem recently, and when you're actually walking down in these different areas, once you have that sort of clarity, and you've been there, as opposed to just sort of this foggy idea from a picture, uh, it changes your whole understanding of the Bible, and it really inspires your faith. And I think that some of the areas that the biblical events have happened are more difficult to get to because they're not all in Israel.
Right. So, and we can talk about that. 3 of the mountains that you want to explore through this, and it's a series of 2 films, right?
Right.
3 of them are in Saudi Arabia, and they are very difficult to access. And for some reason, the Saudis do not want people to access something that might turn out to be biblically referenced or right. So they've put up considerable roadblocks against accessing them, which
Yeah.
is unfortunate. Do you want to speak to that for a minute?
Yes. In fact, when I first started doing this, there were people that really wanted to go to Saudi Arabia and to look for the mountain. And one in particular was Jebel Alaz. And when they couldn't get in officially, 2 different groups basically unofficially snuck in, and they were arrested. And that caused a real problem for any kind of archaeology, and they ended up fencing around the mountain, and it made it unlawful for people to go there. And that was the location that I was able to go to and look at earlier in 2003, and I saw a pattern of evidence that I was very compelled by, possibly the altar where the sacrifices were made. And you could see the plain where right in front of the campsite, and the place where there was a stream. That really impressed me when I was there. But it was also very stressful because the locals did not want foreigners to come to their land. It's one thing to go to the Sinai Peninsula and go to the traditional Mount Sinai where, well, there are times when you can't go there either, depending upon how difficult the political situation is. But when you can go to a place, it gives you an experience. But recently, now it's become more possible for people to actually go there, and they're leading trips to that location. So what I decided
The
was
location in Saudi Arabia.
correct, right.
Okay.
Now people, there are opportunities now for people to actually go to that. They're opening it up and making it possible for people to go to that location. And as you know, in our film, in this whole scorecard, what we do is we basically give biblical passages. When you download this, there's actually biblical criteria inside it, and you can actually have a more clear understanding as to what we're looking at. So it's an interactive investigation, and you're able to look at understand about the campsites and wildernesses and the time that it would have taken to get to Mount Sinai. And I'm hoping that this film will help people to grow in their faith, to see that, hey, there is a pattern of evidence. And I actually watched it last night in a special sneak, peek with a group of people. And I won't share with it, but I'm going to add it to the next film. A new clarity came about these different locations because the Israelites were wandering. And that's the reason why there's interesting connections between some of these mountains. And I'll leave it at that. But there is
It's so hard because there's so much that's fun in this movie, and we can't really talk about it because it kind of is a spoiler, and that's what you're trying to avoid, is like spoiling the surprise. But there is a lot of I was going to say that I introduced you as an investigative filmmaker, but really you're a teacher.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate that. And I know you are a teacher as well. And why is that important is that I think that what I try to do is make films visual. I'm a visual learner. And so this film is going to have a lot of interactive visuals so you can see things. And the reason why we put this scorecard is that I mentioned that when I make a film, they have a lot of content, but I try to unpack it, piece by piece. And I use the analogy of going to the supermarket, and you go there with, maybe I get like my wife says, will you pick up something? And I'll pick up, cream or something. But when I come out of the supermarket, I have got my arms filled with things that I've walked down the aisle with. And these films are sort of like that. And I realized I needed to have a shopping cart so your brain could be ready to take on the next mountain. And so that's why we've got this shopping cart here that basically says, okay, you don't have to go back because you might get confused. Let's score as we go through interactively. And I don't know, have you ever, Sam, been to a movie where you had this interactive play going on? I think it's very educational, but it's very interactive and
No,
very,
the scratch and sniff was never successful for me.
oh, okay. Well, good.
Do you know what? It's funny because my most recent material that I created for people who want to try home learning at home, right, is my playbook for home learning, which is an interactive that goes with a series of videos. And so I think that's in a sense it's the new wave of doing things. But what you've done is you've created a terrific tool for families to participate in the investigation of the film that the film takes them on. And when you say you're a visual learner, everybody is to some degree a visual learner, pretty much. The difference is that what you've done is you've made some visuals to explain the other things that are happening that are not visual in the film. And so you've created visuals. It's what you did in Patterns of Evidence, the Exodus, which I was so impressed by, these many years ago, was the visual of the timelines and then moving the timelines. And it was just it just sort of clicked in my head and it made sense. And it's the same thing with this movie. It's that the scorecard makes it sort of click. Wait, this is right. Nope, not this one. Yes, this one and this one, but not that one, or, this one halfway. And so it's very simple, but it helps you. It helps you to retain it and to make sense of it. And we can all use a little bit of that. I also like the fact that there's a lot of learning that's happening and it's not in a classroom. So when I called you a teacher, all of a sudden I realized, there's an issue with teachers today that I didn't mean to bring into this conversation. And so when you use the word teacher, unfortunately, it doesn't mean what it used to necessarily. And I mean it in every good connotation of the word. You're gifting us with knowledge that we didn't have before. And that's always an excellent use of our time, which is why I really recommend. So the film comes out, it's on October 17th and 18th. It's a Fathom event. So it's just that one weekend. But
It's
it will
actually
be
Monday and Tuesday, not a weekend.
okay. Oh, sorry. It's a Monday. I should know because the 18th is my birthday. You're opening on my birthday.
Yeah.
It's a Monday, Tuesday, which makes it really great for families because you won't have your weekend activities. And it's in 800 plus theaters across the United States. So you should be able to find one close to you. You go to patternsofevidence.com for information. And Tim wanted you to know that by going to see this movie, you're sending a message. In a sense, you're voting, right?
Yeah.
In a sense, you're voting for the Bible, which I think we should all be voting for, except that there are some of us in our community who are voting against the Bible.
Yes, and that's why it's so important, I think, to support films like this. This film has taken many, many years to come to pass. I started filming on it in 2002. And so here we are 20 years later, with footage that I was taking in 2002. And I believe that the investigation of the Bible is more important now because there's so many people that are confused. They are confused about a lot of things. And the
Which
Bible
is what
is
the devil does most effectively, is confuse, right?
Mhm.
Starting
Yeah,
in the Garden of Eden. Did God really say that?
right. Raising questions. I appreciate that. That's the first question that appears in the Bible. Did God really say that you're not supposed to eat of this fruit? And then from there on, it's questioning, questioning, questioning. And those create doubts, and those create um, uh, people that are uncertain about what they should do in their life and who they should trust. And I really got out of this movie, every movie, there's something that I get out of it, but this one has to do with the fact that the Israelites had seen all these different miraculous events. They saw the plagues, they saw the sea parting, they saw the pillar of fire and cloud, and they saw the manna, but they still didn't trust that God was going to take care of them. And it's a lesson for me because I have seen God doing a lot of important things in my life. And I need to continue to trust that He is going to provide. And that manna, it only came once a day, and that you couldn't store it. You couldn't like put it away and because it would rot. And so I think there's a spiritual lesson. We have a great panel discussion at the end of this film with Dr. Mark Henry, who's a pastor Bible teacher. We've got a Jewish Messianic Christian, Tom Berkowitz, who's going to be speaking. And we also have Jeff Cavins, a Catholic theologian. And so we've kind of covered the bases there. And we've got a really important, at the end of the film, sort of wrap up of what does this mean for me today?
Right. So this is a film that you do want to go see in theaters, and don't forget to print out your scorecard. Are you handing out scorecards at the theaters?
Nope, you have to print it out.
Okay. So print out your scorecard, go to what is it, patternsofevidence.com, and check out for tickets there, and you'll find all the information you need. And then go back and look at all the other Exodus movies, Patterns of Evidence movies, including the one that my husband narrated, because it's really good. Thanks so much for joining me, Tim. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Sam.
This is the Sam Sorbo Show. Thanks for listening.